Innovation Interview focuses on students and scholars who are making a great impact on cryptocurrency and blockchain and Web3 adoption.
If you want to actually grow your company or learn anything new, you cannot just rely on numbers. That stuff is not quantified.
Got thrown out of the finance club in college because I was talking about Bitcoin.
We are here at the University of Cincinnati in the Digital Futures Crypto Economics Lab. I am Sunshine and welcome to Innovation Interview. I am very privileged today to speak with an amazing guest, Tonya Evans. Tonya is a full tenured professor and faculty at Penn State Dickerson Law. Prior to that, she served as Associate Dean and Professor of Law at the University of New Hampshire, where she created the first ever online professional certificate program on blockchain, cryptocurrency, and law. She is listed on the Forbes Over 50, active on numerous international boards, and the founder of At Advantage Evans. She is also the host of the Tech Intersect podcast, and she has a new book coming out titled Digital Money Demystified. Tonya describes herself as a writer, teacher, speaker, and lifelong learner. Professionally, she is an intellectual property lawyer and specializes in new tech, including cryptocurrency, blockchain, and crypto assets. She also specializes in entrepreneurship and innovation. And Tonya, I'm sorry if I have probably not even listed everything that you have done in your short lifetime, because frankly, we would run out of time. But thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time, and it's so great to connect with you.
You as well. Thank you so much for reaching out. And I'm on a research leave this year, so I feel so far removed from academics and students, really the reason that, even getting into academia in the first place. So it's always great to have different venues and opportunities to help empower others.
That's great. Well, speaking of time, you have seemed to master time management. Can you tell me your best hack on kind of how you slay the day?
That's a great question, and I've always been a work in process. I feel like I feel like I'm in the zone now. Now, first of all, I'm over 50. You did mention that, so there's that. Life has, at a certain point, captured my attention, particularly in the pandemic years as well. What is really, really important to me, and also kind of a mantra. I found it online, so I can't even properly attribute it. But at this point in my life and in my career, if I'm going to disappoint someone, and I never like to, I'm the type of person that on time is late, and I'm a woman of my word. But at this point, if I'm going to disappoint someone, it will not be myself. And so when I wake up in the morning, one of my best hacks that it's really saved me over the last few years, I wake up and delegate two things. It used to be one thing, but now it's two things. I delegate two things every day because I'm also the type of person, I suspect that you might be as well, that I do not say overachiever, but certainly women who may do too much, because everybody knows that we are highly competent, and our reward for that is actually getting assigned more things or more responsibilities for other people. And so the delegation actually not only lets me off the hook, but it also empowers others to be great. And I'm actually not as important as I think, right? if I'm not here tomorrow, and God willing, and the creek don't rise, I want to be here, but people would be super sad and they would figure it out. And so without having that cataclysmic event, I step back and say, if I weren't here today, who would be actually better than me to do X, Y, and Z off of my thing? And then I go on to the things that actually bring me joy. So that's my one hack for sure.
So delegation and empower others.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. I love it. So tell me maybe something about yourself that a lot of people don't know.
So I had a very non-traditional, it's hard if someone saw my CV and you kind of ticked off some of the things, it sounds like a very traditional path. And in many ways, I have like this parallel existence of something that is, color inside the lines, check all the boxes, do well in school, do all the next right thing. But I also have a really non-traditional path as well. My dad is a surgeon, my mom is a patent attorney. I was an athlete and a poet.
Really?
And made my own early mixtapes. I didn't realize when like Run DMC and the Sugar Hill Gang back in the day came out that you actually needed two turntables and a microphone. So I had one. I scratched up a lot of albums back in the day, but I was really a creative and sensitive soul and definitely excelled a lot in athletics. And that afforded me great opportunities in terms of my education. So kind of fast forward, I was a national juniors champion. I was recruited to play play tennis on scholarship at Northwestern. I played professional tennis for 4 years in between graduating from Northwestern and starting at Howard Law School. And that's at Howard is kind of where my traditional path really started. But I've always had these entrepreneurial endeavors that you mentioned as well. The book that I have now, we'll talk about it later, but I already have had or have published a series of legal reference guides for writers and other and professionals in the first part of my career when I was in practice for 10 years. So I say all that to say that having a non-traditional path can actually lead you to where you really not only want to be and are able to be, but actually where you're supposed to be. So even things that seem like they're off the beaten path or not following all the guidelines, I hope that my life and my life experience and being a performance poet. Now, my assignment partner didn't like that part. I remember I was at Big Law at that time. The firm shall remain nameless, but I would work all day and all night. We call it from Kansas City to Kansas City. But at night, I would go to a coffee shop like 9, 10 o'clock at night after working, and I would perform. And the word got out because it was on my own time, obviously, but my signing partner saw me in like a weekender of a magazine showing that I was performing. I was on the front cover of this weekender in a newspaper. Wow. He came into my room with the paper. He threw it across my desk. And he said, if you have time to do that, you don't have time to do this. And I'm here to tell you actually do. I'm actually a better person. I'm a better lawyer. I'm a better professor, a better entrepreneur, a better family member for being balanced. But that set me back because that was that kind of fork in the road, to choose safety over soul is how I explain it. So if you get that earlier, I just think, I get chills actually talking about it. I'm grateful for where I am now, but I lost, a decade or two finding my way back to where I am now. So you get that earlier, I think you're going to be winning.
Yeah, it's so true. It's those experiences that you don't think make a difference really, or what give us that passion and grit and help us define who we are. So totally agree with you. That's pretty amazing. Well, the crypto economics lab here at the University of Cincinnati is actually one of the kind in the country, as far as I know, because this lab was created about a year ago, and it's really a hub for students, for the community, faculty to come together and do things in crypto economics and Web3 and blockchain. We have mining, hardware, learning how to mine, hardware wallets. And then obviously this show, which we really are trying to just enforce education and innovation in this area. But one of the things that we did find based on kind of our research here is that there's a tremendous amount of crypto curious students, and that's how this lab was created. The students said, we want this lab, and then it was created. But there's also a lot of questions about consumer safety, the impact of blockchain, crypto assets, and then data privacy and security. It comes up a lot. So students admit that they lost money because they were not educated, maybe due to malicious software or scammer tokens or even operator error,
Mm-hmm.
So Tonya, as an expert in this area, how do you protect yourself as a beginner?
These are really great points. First of all, I am over the moon with what you have built, and I love the curiosity. That's actually what led me to create Blockchain, Crypto, and the Law as an online certificate program back at the University of New Hampshire's law school, because there were so many folks who were personally, but also professionally curious as well. And it's always it's tough because I'm always so enthusiastic about user experience. UI UX in this space can be very clunky. There's some more elegant solutions that are coming around as more and more people start to onboard. But looking at it not just personally but professionally is critically important, and so that's why your lab is really important too. So how are students informing their personal crypto rabbit hole journey that ultimately are going to empower them maybe to be the next innovators in the space, right? And they actually have to go through these low moments in order to say, that did not go well. Let me take a step back and figure out where I went wrong, which I think is at the heart of your question. in terms of safety and security. Now, if we take a look at just through the lens of the technology at a high level, and the security, for example, of the Bitcoin network, for example, right? Just the fact that every 10 minutes, aggregated data is distilled in a hash that actually is connected. Some part of that is connected to the next block, and with each block that is added, it gets more and more and more secure, right? The ability to hack, and maybe there would be, God forbid, some quantum computing opportunity to take over a network, right? That's a story for another day. But just going with underneath the beauty, the both sophistication and the simplicity of this really is genius. It really is amazing from a security of a public permissionless method, decentralized method of organizing and protecting data. We all can trust it no matter where we are in the world, because we don't know each other and therefore don't trust each other, but we can trust something that we can all see, that we can all participate in, and no one can keep us out, right? So we talk about the safety of decentralized protocols. Now, to engage with that protocol, now we get to the layer where we're talking about wallets and the difference between cold storage wallets that are not connected to the internet, unless you do, you have to have some interface in order to transmit or update the state of the ledger at any given time and what your transactions and balances are. But there are a whole range of things that we can do in order to make ourselves to make sure that we're safer, right? And so that's the difference between taking a beat. Like, I want everybody to be curious and have a little skin in the game, but maybe it should be a latte's worth rather than your tuition or your mortgage or your car payment, right? Or your retirement. Like, what's your risk assessment? Starting slow, but definitely starting and learning the nature of the different types of wallets. That's a big thing. So the difference between a hot wallet, warm wallet, cold storage, multi-sig accounts, those are different layers of protection for a different purpose. I believe in the diversity of technology as much as I do of a portfolio, to be sure. And then what exchanges are we engaging in? Those centralized exchanges are not a bank, as you know. The crypto contagion of 2022 is a disaster, but that cautionary tale where that wasn't a crypto problem, that's a fraud problem. That's garden variety, WorldCom, Bernie Madoff, right? Lehman Brothers, under the guise of this technology. So I feel like a lot of new entrants got caught up in that. And then the third thing, of course, is FOMO, right? People jumped in from a speculative point of view, and by the time everybody's excited, that's where you should start getting scared. If everybody's in, I think it's Warren Buffett who says, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. That's something that keeps me. And then the final thing is just a little over time. So really understanding the nature of dollar cost averaging or Satoshi cost averaging, or whatever we're going to call it, a little over time, to play the long game, not the speculative game. Those are all some things that I teach folks at Advantage Evans Academy who are trying to onboard or just like reset after this last bear market.
Yeah, I like how you had mentioned start by looking at the layers, because it's so overwhelming to say, what do you do or how do you do this? And I think it's really good to just do the research first and say, okay, what is an exchange? What can you do? What can I trust? And then what are these storage issues? Hardware storage versus warm, cold storage. Where do I store everything? But I think there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard to say, where do I get this information and how do I know that it's accurate? How do you kind of respond to somebody that says, where do I do my research at?
Well, many of us start with YouTube University, of course. And selfishly, I want you to come to even just my free resources at AdvantageEvans.com. But this is a huge problem, particularly when markets are pumping too. So everything looks great and every influencer and star is saying, if I like it, you'll love it. And it's at the ads are at the Super Bowl and everything. It almost lets people off the hook from doing just the bare level of due diligence, right? If I'm going to open a new bank account, I want to know something about the bank. I won't know everything about the bank, but I want to know enough that I'm making the best decision or most educated decision that I can. But there are a ton of influencers, carnival barkers, and that makes it really, really difficult. One way to approach DYOR, do your own research, is to have 3 sources, credible sources that say the same thing. And I know that because you work with students all the time, all sources are not credible. And then we even have to take a step back and figure out, what does credible mean, right? So I like resources that are free and at the end of the day aren't selling you something, but just because it's selling you something doesn't mean it's bad, but just you want to give pause. You have places that have great journalistic integrity, like CoinDesk. You have free resources like CoinMarketCap.com that's not really selling anything, but just has a rich database of every single coin, token, DAO, NFT project listed so that you can see historical data with vetted links. Like, don't search your favorite search engine. Start with credible sources that have been around for a while. And I also like to pay attention to those educators and platforms in the space that have survived at least one down market. So I got into the space in 2017. If something that I was using, interested in, learning from, if it's still here now, that feels pretty legit to me, because every time we go through something like a 2022, a lot of bad actors get shaken out. Speculation grinds to a screeching halt. People return to building. And if you're still here after that, that also kind of speaks volumes to the ability to learn safely. But get those 3 credible sources too. You learn one thing, it's like, okay, that's interesting. Let me find other credible sources that support this take, because my whole book is about myth busting, and there's just no shortage of them. And I feel like I have a series, because there's only so many you could do in one book. But the misinformation coupled with the disinformation, or we would call that FUD, or fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like those who would intentionally inject incorrect information to keep people fearful and locked in the status quo because we don't actually trust ourselves with our own funds. Like, the mindset that needs to shift is also as important as the education. But the DYOR, with the right sources and the multiplicity of sources to support that, is probably where you should begin.
I like that. Those are good Tonya Evans tips. Find 3 sources, do your research from credible sources, credible journalists, and then go from there. Can you tell me about Tonya Advantage? I've briefly been on there and kind of dove a little bit into it, but I'd like you to kind of tell everybody about it.
Sure. So AdvantageEvans.com was my ability to, outside of the traditional, as you said earlier, I'm a full tenured professor. I teach not only blockchain, crypto, and the law, and develop the certificate program, but also administrative law, information privacy law, entertainment law, intellectual property in the copyright and trademark context. So there's a lot going on, all focused on law, and that's just at the law school. But I wanted something that you didn't have to be a lawyer or a law student to reach. I wanted to create various levels of learning from my free master classes, where I do at least quarterly, not as much because there's so much going on this year. But I have replays and trainings and checklists to download. And then also 3-day challenges, so people can come and do a lot of what we're talking about right now. How do you onboard safely, legally, and confidently? I stake my reputation on that. I don't sell crypto. I personally invest, but I don't invest for other people. In fact, if someone is in your DMs right now saying Professor Evans and I'll Forex your money in Forex, it literally is not me. I have hundreds of imposters. That's a story for another day. Yeah. But Advantage Evans is it actually to help people vet coins and tokens and projects, select them for themselves based upon their own risk assessment, risk tolerance, their own goals, and to shift the mindset of how crypto can be a part of a larger portfolio, which really assumes what? That you are maxing out at your 401k or 403b, you have looked into home ownership if that's something you want to do. You've taken care of the other things because those things don't change. But how do you also prepare for the future of money? This is not something that's the future. It's literally yesterday. So if we are not learning about this new technology that's really moving at a meteoric pace, particularly those who have been systemically marginalized. So women, people of color. I'm a Black queer woman. So what are the pockets of folks who are not traditionally at the table learning about investment risks and opportunities? This is the whole point of this technology, to just empower everyone. It was one of the few opportunities literally in the world, or the history of the world probably, where everybody gets a fair shake. Either you have an asset or you don't, right? You can, if you have a phone, you don't even have to be connected all the time to the internet, which makes it really powerful, because even in emerging nations, almost everyone has a cell phone. And so having a one place where people can learn safely, engage with others in community, that's the whole point of Advantage Evans. I have a challenge that's going on next week. Low cost, 3 days, learn what you need to know. And then if you want to go further, you can. But that I want to leave people better than I found them, with the basics, so that they have a good foundation.
That sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to check it out more, because it definitely sounds like you're really geared just towards education and helping people just be more financially diverse and smart, and be able to have that opportunity that maybe they didn't before.
Right.
I got to ask you though, thinking of, when there's a different conversation when somebody says cryptocurrency, and a different mindset when somebody says blockchain. Obviously, they're different. Blockchain is the technology behind cryptocurrency, but there's kind of this black cloud over the term cryptocurrency, right? And so I don't want to say, what do you think the future is going to hold for cryptocurrency, but more, what do you think the future is going to hold for blockchain and maybe Web3? Because I feel like they're all really combined together.
Absolutely. And when I think about getting in 2017, 2018, it was right on the heels. Well, one, the ICO boom and bust, or the initial coin offering, where people were building projects and selling their tokens and receiving cash. It was like the ultimate like crowdsourcing of projects in really the Ethereum environment, right? So people were building an Ethereum virtual machine. But just a year before that, in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, was the big DAO hack. And that was where I first heard people. I came in at a time where people were saying blockchain, not Bitcoin, which didn't even make sense exactly, because Bitcoin wasn't connected to a lot of the projects being built on the EVM, but that's fine. But I actually was drawn in by blockchain technology because of my background as an intellectual property lawyer generally, but a lot of my writing is at the intersection of blockchain and cryptographically secured assets and copyright. So like my first law review article written in this space is called CryptoKitties, Cryptography and Copyright, where I too was leaning into this idea of, I don't know about this magic internet money, but this blockchain, this distributed way to organize and protect data, this has legs. I want to know more about that. What I also eventually learned was, in order to fully appreciate the power of a public permissionless record of transactions and balances, when like the first use case is for peer-to-peer exchange of value. But it can organize data. Like it could be transactional data, but it could be something very different. And when you have this open source protocol that lends itself to community and everyone participating, not only participating as an investor, but also you could be a builder, you could be a miner, right? You could run a full node in the Bitcoin space in some way to participate. And that was very interesting to me. I just learned that in order to fully appreciate it, I had to know something about cryptographically secured assets. And yes, there definitely is a black eye on crypto, and necessarily so. 2022 is a horrendous year, and we cannot minimize the impact of kind of like Pied Pipers moving through and, not being held accountable. Like a lot of benefit of the doubt. Like maybe we need to appreciate that. I assure you, if I showed up at a meeting in a ratty t-shirt and little shorts, no one's giving me anything. No one's giving me any money. No one's giving you any money, right? So maybe we need to reassess that as well. But understanding the nature of blockchains opens up the possibility that in addition to peer-to-peer protocols being used to exchange value, that technology can also be used to make identity more secure and clear. Like there's so many other use cases. So I would encourage people as they say blockchain, not Bitcoin, get it, or not crypto, because there are over 23,000 different types. And we could have a
Right.
whole discussion just on that. But with your curiosity around the underlying technology, also push yourself to understand the reason in 2009 this was a thing and where we go from here, in the same way that with the internet, the first use case really for us was electronic mail. And now we don't even want to open our mail, but look at all the other things that we do with it. Like let's give the technology some room to breathe, and it could be a both and, not an either or.
Yeah, it's very confusing when cryptocurrency is used, and a lot of the chains are not actually a currency. Their ecosystem is used, it's tokenized, but the use case, there's so many use cases as far as, Internet of Things or
Mhm.
identity or art, uh, keeping up with it, just data as a ledger.
Yes.
So or just information. It's just so unlimited. So I
Yeah,
want
and you
to.
mentioned about Web3 too, and I've done quite a bit with like non-fungible tokens, which was another use case I found interesting, not just as a matter of creativity and empowerment of creators, which I love as a creative soul myself, but then taking that a step further to what other use cases there are for non-fungible tokens that people don't get a chance to discuss because they're caught up in what I consider to be, and I think that's what you were mentioning too, this misnomer around cryptocurrency. Like the fact that we have to call it cryptocurrency, which is why I usually say crypto asset, because you can have a cryptographically secured asset that functions as a currency, but also has similar properties to a stock, for example, which is the reason that it is taxed in the United States as a capital asset that enjoys capital gains and capital losses. That's not a pure currency, right? We don't treat our currency that way. And so even that discussion, I think, would be helpful for people to expand their understanding of the space, to know that we have things that programmable assets that function as currency, but can function in other ways as well.
Well, I want to shift over to a little bit of law.
Let's do it.
Tonya, what do you find as almost a common theme or question when it comes to regulation of cryptocurrency that you're finding?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of speaking around this. And it's so interesting because as a lawyer, my lane was in intellectual property and not in regulatory compliance, but I find myself in the space, one, because of teaching, but then being invited recently to testify before the House Financial Services Subcommittee on crypto, financial technology, and inclusion. And this is a new subcommittee for the House Financial Services. And I thought it was a fantastic assemblage of really great minds in the space. We had the chief legal officer from Coinbase, for example, on my same panel, Paul Graywall. And what I've noticed over these last years is it was not a moment too soon, but the level of sophistication in terms of some of the questions. So, some are political, but I have to say for that one, it was really trying to just get at what is going on in the regulatory space with the agencies charged with capital markets. So the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, led by Gary Gensler, or the Commodity and Futures Trading Commission, led by Commissioner or Chair Benham. So like the CFTC governs commodities, things that can be exchangeable for another. Think of an apple for an apple, orange for an orange, wheat is wheat, right? Things that are commodities versus a security where people are purchasing them and relying on the efforts of whoever the issuer is for some type of profit over time. That'd be basically a security. And there is this disconnect between the heads of at least these two agencies, let alone other what we call prudential regulators. They regulate banks and things like that, like the FDIC, Treasury, et cetera. And so we can't even have two chairs of these very important committees to agree on anything other than Bitcoin. Evidently, everybody agrees that from the beginning, Bitcoin was and still is a commodity. Evidently, when ETH first, before Ethereum was fully developed, there was an initial coin offering. It was one of the first. It wasn't the first, but it was one of the first. So early on, arguably, that was a security, an unregistered security. By the time the regulators caught up, in my humble estimation, and evidently much of the world, except for the SEC, believes that Ethereum is also a commodity. There are probably a lot of unregistered securities out there. And so questions come about the fear of buying something that you may lose out on, or that project may be sued. We have Coinbase, it's not a project, but an exchange currently battling the SEC. We have Gemini, we have the library case, XRP, the Ripple. There's so much uncertainty around that really harms investors at the end of the day if we can't have more clear guidelines. And so that's what I was talking about before Congress. And my hope is that over time, I don't think anything's going to change in the next 18 months because we are now in an election cycle. But this is the discussion around the regulation of cryptocurrency is critical for this country. And I don't think this is a political issue. I think this is an issue of whether we're going to fall behind or not, because the technology doesn't stop, but the ability for Americans to invest and also build safely in the space, it'll just go off shores. And we will lose out on all fronts. In the same way, kind of we lost out with like semiconductors. And we're doing everything in the world to try and get semiconductor technology back to the United States. Do we want to find ourselves in that same position in this with this technology? And this year, it seems like the answer might be yes, but hopefully over time, this will settle. But right now, it's quite uncertain.
My hope is that we don't lag behind and other countries are utilizing this technology sooner than we are.
Absolutely, with clearer guidelines. And guidelines don't mean that it's easy. It could be wicked difficult, but let's just be clear so that business builders and investors and consumers can make reasoned and informed decisions about what they choose to involve themselves in. And when you think of free markets and all of that, and financial freedom and being allowed to make your own decisions as long as you have all of the information, which is really the point of this technology. Like, this technology solves for some of the problems of business where there's what we call asymmetry of information. Like, the issuer knows something that the investor doesn't. That's bad. But actually, our technology solves for that issue. We don't really need a law for that, because the technology does what the law is intended to do in order to make a project transparent so that you have all the information. So then to fit that technology back into, like, it doesn't make sense to reverse it, where the laws will not be solving problems, they'll be creating more problems than they solve. So there's some holes and there's some loopholes that need to be filled, but the technology is elegant in the way that it solves for things that the law was intended to do.
So Tonya, tell me about your book. Tell me what it's about and when it is coming out.
So this labor of love, digital money demystified, this was part of my responsibility on my research leave from Penn State Dickinson Law School this year. And it focuses on, really in plain language, some of the top myths that we have heard and probably have believed at some point in time. I picked things that I believed until I didn't. And oftentimes, you have these, they're like, I think we all just, when you're falling down the rabbit hole and trying to figure it out and trying to find your way to competent, credible, unbiased information, you just naturally come up against myths, right? So like the number one myth is around that crypto is only for criminals. And so I believe my editor and my publisher will have the final word, but that should be, in my humble estimation, the first chapter for the myths, because I just hear it all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
And when this technology works effectively, it's actually a pretty bad place to engage in criminal activity because there's no easier way to connect the dots and kind of follow the money than on-chain activity. You literally just open up.
It's a mutable
there
ledger
it
that
is.
has everything right there. that you
Right
can
there.
trace. Yeah.
Right. So fraudsters may use crypto or prefer crypto because it moves relatively instantaneously. You're not waiting for, T+3 day settlement, right? They can get it pretty
Yeah.
quickly. But also, who else can get it? The Department of Justice. So it's like a terrible, and we've seen examples of that, right?
Yeah.
Where they go and get back millions in the equivalent of crypto
Yeah,
because
a
they're
lot of
able to
money
find.
because they've seized
Absolutely.
lots of crypto. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, cryptos and just looking at like Chainalysis and some of those other businesses charged with actually working with law enforcement to do that, it's less than 0.25% of activity, less than 0.25% of activity
Oh,
in
wow. I
2022.
didn't know
Like
that.
not even 1%. And then let's say in the worst case scenario, they got it totally wrong. Okay, 2%. But the number one currency used in nefarious activity is still, I'm sorry to report, breaking news, the almighty dollar. It just is what it is.
Gosh.
And we're not throwing away dollars, right?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Interesting. Well, I can't wait to read it. When does it come out?
It drops on October 24th.
Okay.
It is available for pre-order now. And pre-order is really important for, particularly for alternative voices. There are a ton of like Bitcoin books and crypto books,
Yeah.
far fewer written by women. And, the idea of a panel of women talking about women in Bitcoin is one thing, but just having us at the seat, just having us at the table talking about our
Agreed.
expertise is something
Yes.
different. That's what I'm
Agreed.
interested in doing. So I really appreciate the support of pre-orders to let the industry know and let Amazon or wherever know that we are interested in these voices in our areas of expertise.
Well, we'll make sure that we put that at the bottom of the video. So anyone that
Awesome.
wants to pre-order, I will definitely pre-order mine. I'm excited to read it. I know you don't have a lot of time, but I do have a surprise for you. After every interview, we play a game because
Let's
I
do it.
think games with education are so much fun. So some are hardware wallets and some are fake or items that look like hardware wallets. So you just tell me if it's fake or a hardware wallet. And then after the 1 minute, I'll tell you. You ready?
All right. I'm
All right,
ready.
here we go. Uh-oh.
I want
you
some
see
more
that?
time back. I'll say fake.
Fake.
Ooh. Oh, is that at the bottom?
You see it?
Is it just cannot?
You don't see
But
it?
like looking like a phone.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, cool. That's interesting. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna say fake. I don't know. That looks pretty good. I don't know. I'm worried now. Fake. I want to change my answer for number 2, but it's too late now. That's interesting. Fake. Real. Could be real. Can I see the back?
Yep.
I'm gonna say real. I don't know what that one is, but it looks kind of real. I don't know. We'll go with it. Fake. But if it came like that, I totally love. Wait a minute, let me move this out of the
All
way.
right. This is last
Oh
one.
yeah.
I'll let you
Real.
decide.
Real.
All right, perfect. All right, so the real ones, you got all the real ones that you said were real, actually.
Okay.
This is a SafePal hardware wallet.
Oh, nice.
Yep, and this is a Keep Key hardware wallet.
Yes. Okay.
And then this is a Ledger hardware
Yes.
wallet.
Okay. Old school.
Okay, so the fake, 2 of them were actually hardware wallets.
Let's see.
This right here is a coin kite.
Cute. Oh, I've never seen that. It's adorable. Coin
Yeah,
kite.
it really is.
All right, I'm making a note.
The coin kite is for the paranoid. They can do everything.
Okay.
So that's the coin kite. And this cell
Okay.
phone looking thing is actually a hardware wallet. It has a stand.
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
this is an LA Pal.
Okay. You know what? I do not have one clearly myself, but I've seen some of the like not commercials, but some of the ads for it. And it was
Yeah.
on my list to buy because I want to do the same thing you've done
Yeah.
So thank
It's
you.
really, it's really good.
Really proud.
And then this is, of course, a calculator, but it looks very similar to the coin kite if you look at it.
It does.
It's got that 80s, 90s nostalgia.
Yeah.
This is a calculator.
Shout out to Gen X.
And then this is a calculator. So you did really well.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, Tonya, thank you for connecting with me today, speaking with me today. Thank you for your knowledge and wisdom. I'm going to check your website out, your book, all that
Awesome.
information we'll put at the bottom there. Give us some like end lasting words on someone that is considering researching crypto and where to start. Just a couple sentences.
Absolutely. If you're having that thought or discussion, or you're already ahead of the curve, keep going, keep growing. This is a really exciting time to be involved in what will be the next iteration of the internet, and you will be on the leading edge. So I'm really proud of you. Keep going.
Well, thank you, Tonya. And I want to tell you, you keep going. You seem to meet everyone and just make them a better person when you meet them. So I'm so great and honored to meet you. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good luck to you. Take care.